Good day, everyone. I am Miss Tigal Sicolyado, and together with Miss Ariana Juan, Althea Malinaw, Hamilin T. Tagolanaw, and Micaela Jan Kisha, we are the group assigned to report in Chapter 9. So these talk about social linguistic perspective, and this is also the last chapter of the book. So when we talk about language learning, we often think of grammar or vocabulary. But this chapter reminds us that learning a language is also about social interaction, how people use language with others, in real life situations and inside different cultures. So next slide po ako. So we have here a quote from Duff 2007. He or she explained here that when people learn a new language, they are also learning how to become part of a new community. So language is not only about words. It teaches us how to behave and communicate like the people who speak it. So, for example, learning English includes learning to say please, thank you, and excuse me politely because those are important in English speaking culture. So, that means that language learning is also learning culture and manners. So, every time we use a second language, we are also joining its social world. Next slide po. So this part introduces the chapter, what the chapter will cover. So when we say here social linguistics, it means that the study of language in use, how people actually speak in everyday life. So it studies questions like why do people speak differently in different settings or how does culture influence the way we talk. In this chapter, the authors connect social linguistics with second language. So this chapter covers several topics such as social linguistically driven variability in second language use, second language socialization, communities of practice and situated language to learning, language to learning agency and the reconstruction of identity, and last, affect emotion and investment in learning in language to learning. So now let's move to section 9.2, which focuses on social linguistically driven variability in second language use. Next slide po ako. So I will no longer read what's in the PPT, but rather explain it. So according to Holmes 2008, social linguistic looks at how our language changes depending on the situation. So, for example, we greet a friend, "What's up?" And unlike when we greet a teacher, "Good morning, ma'am," "Good morning, sir," "Good morning, sir." So this example shows that both words are English, but the choice of that words depends on who we talk to. And this is called socially patterned variation. So the same happens with second language learners. Their language is called interlanguage and it changes too. Sometimes they use more formal words, other times simple forms. So this variation shows that language learning is connected to social behavior, not just grammar rules. Next slide po ako. So these figures by Illis 2008 help us see that variation happens in two main ways. So we have here the vertical variation and the horizontal variation. So in vertical variation, the changes happen over time as the learners improve. So for example, a beginner says he go to school. Then later, he goes to school. So this kind of variation shows learning progress. Next, horizontal variation. So this is the changes depending on the situation. So for example, saying gana when chatting with friends, but going to when speaking formally. So Ellis also distinguished between internal linguistic and external or social reasons for these changes. This means that learning a language is both a mental and a social process. It involves learning structure and how to use it in the right situations. So after understanding the types of variation here, let us now see how researchers measure or quantify them. Next slide po. William Nabokov was the first to study language differences using numbers and statistics. So he found here that people from Detroit often drop the last T or D sounds in words like the word mist into miss. He also discovered that social class matters. Like in the upper class, the speakers there keep the full sound. Unlike in the working class, the speakers drop it more in casual talk. So pronunciation can show social identity, how language reflects class or group members. So to study this kind of variation more precisely, researchers developed a computer program which we called VARBROL. So next slide. Next slide. So VARBROL helped researchers predict how likely someone was to use one speech form instead of another. So it looked at the sound around the word, vowels or consonants, whether the sound marked grammar like ed for past tense and the speaker's social class. So for example, if someone was from a working class background and speaking casually, so the program showed a higher chance of dropping T and D sounds. So this proves that language variation follows clear patterns, not random mistake. So the same tool was later used to study second language learners, like in Bailey's 1996 research. So next slide. So here, Bailey applied the same method to Chinese learners of English. So he discovered that they also deleted the T and the D sounds, but not randomly. So they drop it more often in single words like the words just into just, and less in grammar endings like the word walked, where T and D shows the past tense. So this means learners pay attention to meaning. So they avoid deleting sounds that might change grammar. So even when learners speak differently, they still follow logical language patterns. So next reporter, you can speak now.
So, good evening, everyone. I am the next reporter. I am Ariana Nisha Juan. So, the next topic is acquiring social linguistic variation in interlanguage. I won't able read what's on the PPT na. Um, Here, the social linguistic history of one such variable in English, the so-called rule of TD deletion, which is responsible for the absence of the final TD in words like past and past, grab and grab. This rule is an especially good candidate for social historical reconstructions for several reasons. Perhaps most important is the fact that it has been studied extensively synchronically in a wide range of English dialects, which provides a good starting point and comparative base for the historical linguist. According to Morgan et al., contemporary spoken French in Canada has three types of variant: the vernacular, mildy marked, and formal. The first one, this variant includes informal everyday speech patterns commonly used by native speakers in casual settings. It often features reduced forms, contractions, and regionally specific expressions. For example, using on instead of nose for we is a vernacular choice. The next one is milky mark. These forms are somewhat formal but still acceptable in informal contexts. They may be used by speakers who are trying to sound more polished or are influenced by classroom instruction. In the case of pronouns, immersion students often favor on as a mildy mark variant, though not as frequently as native speakers. The next is the formal. This variant aligns with standard grammar and pronunciation taught in schools and used in official or professional settings. It includes full forms and prescriptive norms, such as consistently using nows for we and avoiding contractions or colloquialisms. Next one is the second language socialization. This research is based on anthropological linguistics, which studies how language relates to culture and society. It also connects to systematic functional linguistics according to William 2008, which looks at how language is used in different contexts, and to social cultural theory by Duff 2007, which emphasize how learning and communication are shaped by social and cultural interaction. Language socialization theory started by looking at how children learn to speak their first language through long-term, in-depth studies of everyday lives. Now, researchers are also using this theory to understand how people learn a second language in online spaces like social media or virtual communities. Next is um, developmental links between first language and culture. According to Och and Skeffelin, believe that in every culture, the way grammar is used is closely connected to everyday social situations. The meanings that grammar points to cold indexical meanings help children learn how to use and understand grammar by linking it to the cultural context which they grow up. Och and Skeffelen also studied how people talk to and with children in different cultures. They found out that these ways of speaking are shaped by cultural beliefs. For example, in white middle class families in North America, babies are treated like little conversation partners from a very young age, and adults often talk to them one on one. Och and Skeffelin found that the way young children use grammar is influenced by their social roles and gender. For example, some children first use emotional affect mark grammar forms when asking for things like food before they learn the neutral forms. In the Kaluli culture, women often use command-like imperative verb to teach young children how to speak. Girls pick up and use this form early by age 2 to play and guide others. But boys, even though they understand it, they don't use this form themselves. Um, Researchers in second language acquisition are interested in how people learn language not just through mental effort but also through social interactions. That that's why many find the language socialization perspective useful. It combines both views. An early researchers, Poole 1992, studied about ESL classroom and found that the way teachers speak is influenced by their culture, something that most language learning research had paid much attention to before. For example, K8 2007 studied a 7-year-old Kurdish girl named Pussy in a Swedish classroom for immigrant children. Over one school year, Pussy learned how to talk better in Sweden and how to take turns in group conversation led by the teachers. This shows how children can gradually become active and appropriate participants in classroom talk through language learning and social interaction. Next reporter, please.
Good day, everyone. I am the next reporter of this topic, and I am Hamelin Tagulanang. Communities of practice and situated second language learning. So I will no longer read what's on the PPT, and I will summarize the topic. Um, in language learning, we don't just learn a new language from books or grammar rules. We learn language through social interaction by talking, listening, and participating in real situations with other people. Sociolinguistic like Himes 1972 and Saville Troik 1989 explain that language is connected to identity and culture. This means the way we speak shows who we are. So language learning isn't just a mental process, it is also a social practice. Next slide. Next is empirical studies of second language learning as a situated social practice. So the idea here is that learners improve their second language by participating in a community. This is what we call communities of practice or COP. A community of practice is a group of people who share the same activity or interest, interact regularly, and learn from one another. So the picture is shows the conversation of the example, and I will summarize the example in the book. So for example, a Polish first language child named Julie who had come to school speaking little English successfully graduated over time from her ESL status and established herself as an average, mainstream student. Another Punjabi first language child named Surjit was positioned directly as a struggling student who would need continuing ESL support. So disputes were common among the children in the class and Tohei analyzes this in some detail, showing how Julie's relatively aggressive and skillful responses to threats of subordination allowed her to develop a more powerful place in the classroom community and subsequently to win access to resources and conversational opportunities. So Sergent, on the other hand, was regularly marginalized by peers and excluded from conversation. So the picture shows their conversation. So next slide. So another example is the picture number 2. So it has A, B, C, and D. So let's talk about it. So A is access to observations of core members interacting. So this means it observes how core members speak, like listening. And second is scaffolding by some core members both in the lab and in the team meeting. So it likes receiving help and guidance from more knowledgeable others, or what we call scaffolding. And letter C is ridicule by other core members. So it is the experiences correcting and teasing, which is makahelp siya to improve. And the last is opportunities for successful design, experiences, and for chances to explain these design processes. So it is to get a chance to participate and grow. So this shows that learning happens through actual social participation, not just studying alone. So next slide po. So next is power, ideology, and opportunities for second learning. So researcher Bonnie Norton studied adult immigrants learning in English in Canada. So she found that the ability to learn English depends on what learners are included or excluded in daily social interaction. So power imbalances in families, workplace, and communities affect language learning. For example, is the story of My the Vietnamese Girl, and isummarize ko na lang yung story. So, Mai lived with her brother's family. Her brother had strong patriarchal authority, meaning ginakontrol sa iyang brother ang mga decisions. At first, Mai had limited freedom and few opportunities to use English, but Mai resisted the expected role of being dependent. So she found a job to support the family, and nagahelp din siya to take care her nephews who spoke English. So by becoming more independent, she gained more opportunities to use and learn English. So another example is the Moroccan immigrant named Abdul Malik. Na misunderstood ni Abdul Malik ang French word na parko. Ang meaning ng parko is how. Na misunderstood niya yon as porko. Ang meaning ng porko is why. So that is the difference. So because of past experiences of being questioned by authorities, ang abi ni Abdul Malik, the agent was asking about the reasons for his trip, not how he wanted to travel. So this shows how past cultural experiences affect how people understand language. So language learning happens in real interaction, not just in classroom. So example naman sa classroom is The Hong Kong Immigrant Student in Canada by Pon et al. 2003. In Canadian high school, one-third of the students were Hong Kong-born. They spoke Cantonese often. In English class, they stay silent during discussion. So the Canadian-born student is na-misinterpret nila ang silent sa Hong Kong immigrant students. So they said that maybe they are silenced because they don't know English, or they are not motivated. But the truth was different. Hong Kong students feared that if they participated in English, their Hong Kong peers might judge them as being too Western or showing off. So their silence was caused by cultural pressures, not lack of ability. So next slide. So overall, in this study, the researchers conclude that not only racial and linguistic difference, but different cultural values and stereotypes combined at this particular high school to keep students group apart. Next slide. So let's proceed to second language learning agency and the reconstruction of identity. And hindi sa nakabasahon ang sa PPT. So recent researchers like Black and Norton and McKinney 2011 argue that identity isn't fixed, it is flexible daw and constantly changing. So this is called post-structuralist view. identity can be shaped and reshaped by our choices, experiences, and especially by the language we use. So we have agency, which means we can actively shape our identity through language interaction and interaction. So next slide. So Norton studied adult immigrants learning a new language and introduced the idea of an imagined future. So sabi ni Norton, identity is how a person understands the relationship to the world, how that relationship is built over time and space, and how they imagine their future. So this means that when someone learns a new language, they are not just learning grammar, they are building a new version of themselves with new possibilities. So um, Norton's also emphasizes that language creates identity and is also shaped by identity. Through language, people negotiate who they are in different places and times. So language can give access to powerful social networks or block it. So learning a second language isn't just about communication, it's about belonging, opportunity, and self-expression.
Good day, everyone. So, I'll be reporting about adult transformations of identity. So, this topic talks about how adult learners of a second language experience changes in their identity and confidence as they learn and use the language. So, let's start with the first example from Norton's study, which is Martina's story. So Martina was a French immigrant who worked in a fast food restaurant. At first, her teenage co-workers boozed her around and treated her like she was less important just because she didn't speak English well. But later on, she asserted herself. She remembered that she's an adult and deserved respect. When she did that, she became more confident to speak and express herself in English. So as we can see, when Martina's confidence grew, her ability to communicate also improved. Let's move on to how identity changes affect language learning. Next slide, please. So as Martina's identity changed, she got more opportunities to speak and learn English. So Norton explained that how learners see themselves affects how they learn. If they feel respected and confident, they participate more in conversations and learn faster. So now, aside from Martinez, there's another example from the ESF researchers. Let's talk about Berta's experiences. So Berta was a Spanish speaker living in a French speaking place. She once tried to order shelves at a shop, but she couldn't understand the technical words the shop assistant was using. So because of that, the assistant lose interest and focus on another customer. So this made Berta feel embarrassed and frustrated. It shows that when learners face uncooperative native speakers, their self-esteem can really go down. So now let's see how learners like Berta react differently when they face communication problems. Next slide, please. Berta's experience. So, Berta was a Spanish speaker living in a French speaking place. So, she once tried to order shelves at a shop, but she couldn't understand the technical words the shop assistant was using. So, because of that, the assistant lose interest and focus on another customer. So, this made Berta feel embarrassed and frustrated, and it shows that when learners face uncooperative native speakers, their self-esteem can really go down. So now let's see how learners like Berta react differently when they face communication problems. Next slide, please. So reactions to communication challenges. So the ESF study found that learners react in two ways. Some withdraw and stop speaking to protect their confidence, but others, like Berta, continue trying. So she learned to clarify words and ask questions until she understood. Because she didn't give up, she slowly became more confident in speaking. So to end this topic, let's talk about the key idea we can learn from this example. So this section reminds us that learning a second language is not about grammar or vocabulary. It's also about identity and confidence. So when learners believe in themselves and see that their voice matters, they gain courage to speak and improve faster. So that is all for adult transformations of identity.
Good day, everyone. I would like to introduce myself first. I am Michaela Jantisho, and today I'm going to talk about adolescence and L2 identities. So, I won't be reading the text written on the PPT. Instead, I'll explain it to you directly. Adolescence and L2 identities, or in simple terms, this is how teenagers who are learning a second language form their identities while living in a new culture. So, according to Mackay and Wong study in 1996, a Chinese immigrant students who went to high school in the United States experienced many conflicting expectations. They were influenced by different ideas or what we call discourses. For example, there were colonial or racial ideas that saw immigrants as less capable. There was the model minority stereotyping rather or stereotype that expected Asian students to always succeed. There were also Chinese cultural beliefs about what it means to be Chinese, and there were school and gender expectations that shape how they should act. And because of all this, the students had to manage or balance their identities. In other words, they had to adjust who they were depending on where they were and who they were with. But sometimes they acted more American to fit in at school, and sometimes they more Chinese when at home. So this shows that their identity was not fixed, it changed based on their environment. Next slide. So another study by Lam in 2004, and the study focused on two Chinese girls, Yu Qing and Chu Ying, who moved from southern China to the US for high school. At first, they were shy to speak English because they were afraid of being laughed at. So even though there were other Chinese students, those students were American born Chinese or ABCs who grew up in the US. And Yu Qing said, even though we have Chinese faces, we don't feel like we are Chinese. So this shows that they didn't feel they truly belong anywhere, not fully Chinese or not fully American either. But later, the two girls joined a Hong Kong based online chat room where they talk with other Chinese teens from different parts of the world. In the chat room, they use both English and Cantonese at the same time. So, this is what we call code switching. I'll give you an example. They would say, "Can send mail to UR," or "Give me your adla," and even "aya," which is a common Cantonese say. So these small Cantonese words, which are "r," "la," and "aya," made their English sound more natural and expressive. Through these online conversations, the girls started to feel more confident and connected. They created a new kind of identity, not just a Chinese or even an American, but a mix of both. So this is what we call a transnational identity rather, which means their identity crosses cultures and countries. So in summarize, teenagers learning a second language often face different expectations that affect how they see themselves. Their identities are not fixed. They can change depending on where they are. And language is a part of identity. And by mixing languages, they express who they really are, especially in online spaces. Online spaces can help them find their voice and connect with others like them. So, in conclusion, a learning learning a second language is not just about learning grammar or vocabulary. It's also about discovering yourself in a new culture. Like Yuching and Chuying, many L2 learners find their identity through experiences, relationships, and even the way they use language every day. Thank you.
So, good day again. I am Hamelin Tagulano and this is my topic. Again, life histories of second language learners. So, researchers Pavlenko studied personal life stories of people who learned a new language after growing up. So, she found that learning a second language during immigration involves two major, which is in the picture, the stage of losses and the stage of gains and reconstruction. So, let's talk about the stage of losses. First is careless baptism, loss of one's linguistic identity. So dito is when learners move to a new language environment, they may experience loss of linguistic identity like they are feeling like their first language is no longer fit. So second is loss of all subjectives. So dito is parang lolos na nila yung self-confidence nila. Then the third is loss of the frame of reference and the link between the signifier and the signified. So dito naman is the feeling of disconnected from their past life. So next is loss of inner voice. So diri is difficulty expressing deep feelings in the new language. And last is first language attention. So, dito is like first language may weaken. Parang nagawik na yung first language nila. So, next stage is the stage of gains and reconstruction. And let's talk about the first appropriation of other voices. With the time, learners begin to adopt new ways of speaking. Next is emergence of one's own voice often in writing. So, dito is makadevelop na ng new voice, sometimes through writing, like for example, like messaging and writing essays. Next is transition therapy, translation therapy, reconstruction of one's past. So, dito naman is magre-reflect na on and rewrite their past experiences using new language. And the last is continuous growth into new positions and subjectives. So dito naman is grow into new cultural identities and social roles. So dito is the learner starts in overall, the learner starts to feel like they belong in both culture. So according to Pavlenko 2001, example of identity change is some women who learned English as their second language found that English gave them more freedom, more confidence, and a chance to express themselves differently than in their first culture. So their identity expanded. Dili siya ma-replace. So that's all in my part. Thank you.
So now let's talk about affect, emotion, and investment in second language learning. So many researchers in SLL have tried to explain differing degrees of learner success by appealing to the concept of motivation. So learners' attitudes and feelings about L2 learning may be dynamic and negotiable. So this part explains that one reason why learners differ in success when learning a second language is because of their motivation and feelings. Not just about intelligence or skills, it's also about how we feel while learning. For example, if you feel motivated or positive toward the language, it's easier for us to learn. But when you're bored or scared, then mas lisod. It also says that our motivation can change depending on situation or people around us. So, Berta is emotional experience. So, we have an example about Berta, a migrant learner who needed to use French to talk to a doctor about her injured child. She was angry and frustrated because she couldn't express herself well in French. So this story shows how strong emotions like anger or fear can affect how we speak or remember words. Like in her case, uh, just because of her fear or anger, she forgot her French words, so her emotion really influenced her language performance. So the concept of investment by Northern and McKinney. So the researchers Northern and McKinney introduced the word investment. So this means the effort or time that a learner gives to learn a language, but it depends in your goals or identity that you want or to build. For example, some learners practice English because they want to be good students, while others do it because to become more sociable or to get better job opportunities. So investment is deeper than motivation. It's about reason why we give effort. Next slide, please. Sensitive infographic study of a French medium Toronto High School compared the social motivations for learning French of local white students with those of transitional students of migrant backgrounds. So in this part, Hiller studied students in a French medium school in Toronto, Canada. So some were African migrants while others were local white students. So the African student had mixed feelings toward French and English. It's because for them those are language of colonialism. But even though they didn't love those language, emotionally they still studied hard because they believed it could help them succeed in life. On the other hand, the white student studied French because of family background, not because she needed it for her future. It's because this shows that each learner invests differently depending on their goals and emotion.
Good day, everyone. So, today I'm going to talk about the scope achievements of social linguistic inquiry. But I won't be reading the text written on the PPT, but instead I'll explain it to you directly. So, how language socialization in the classroom. So, these sections of your reading talks about how learning a second language is not just about grammar and vocabulary, but also about social interaction, identity, and culture. So, in the classroom, we see how students learn a language through social interaction. So, for example, the teacher and students use short exchanges like no breakfast or I drink milk after breakfast. So, the student fully copies or borrows words and structures from the teacher, such as the word drink, and uses them in her own sentences. So, this shows language appropriation. Students learn by imitating and reusing language used by others. Next slide. Routines and cultural learning. Studies like those of Kanagi and Ota in 1999 show that children in foreign language classrooms learn through repeated routines such as greetings, checking attendance, introducing themselves, and by repeating this, they learn social behaviors and expressions appropriate to that culture. I'll give you an example. See how Japanese students greet or introduce themselves formally. So, language learning and culture learning happen together. Social linguistic inquiry. This part explained that social linguistic studies focus on how language learning happens in social contexts. It looks at how learners use language in real life situations, how identity, a community, and relationships affect learning, and how non linguistic factors like social background, gender, motivation, or shape success in language learning. Next slide. Accounts of the L2 learner. So, researchers like Norton and Pavlenko, according to them, learners' identity, motivation, and self esteem affect how they learn. So, these qualities change as learners interact more in the second language. The concept of agency, or should we say taking control of one's learning, in investment, putting effort and emotion into learning are key for success. So, learning a second language depends not just on skill, but on how much the learner invests in learning how they see themselves as users of that language. Thank you.